All right, so today we're diving deep into some market action with some names you probably heard.
Oh, yeah.
GameStop, Robinhood,
Hey,
Marathon Digital, SoFi,
yeah, it's
Meta,
all over the news.
Microsoft, Coinbase, and even Amazon.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
It is, but we've got this market analysis that's going to help us.
Perfect.
And it really gets into everything from some wild comeback attempts to where finance and tech are headed.
I'm intrigued already.
Me too. And oh, we even get into crypto and the metaverse.
This is going to be good.
It is. So let's start with GameStop.
Okay.
Remember those stores?
Okay.
Like way back when we actually went to a store to buy games.
Yeah, the good old days.
I know, right? But they've really struggled to, figure out this whole digital world.
It's tough for those brick and mortar stores these days.
It is, but it seems like their chairman Ryan Cohen has some ideas.
Like what?
Well, he's been bringing in people with tons of e-commerce experience.
Smart move.
Right. And then there's that whole NFT marketplace they launched.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. They're not just selling any NFTs, though.
Yeah, it's all gaming related.
Makes sense trying to tap into that gamer community.
Totally. And maybe even change how we think about owning stuff in games, like digital items and things.
It's a big gamble, though.
It is, because you've got these huge companies already dominating the digital space.
For sure. Amazon, Steam, it's a tough market.
And let's not forget, GameStop's got this, army of retail investors behind them.
They do. It's kind of wild, right?
It is. It makes you wonder if, nostalgia and online communities can really compete with the big guys.
That's the question, isn't it? GameStop will have to execute perfectly if they want to stand a chance.
For sure. All right, well, let's move on to another company shaking things up, Robinhood.
Okay.
They really exploded onto the scene with their whole commission-free trading thing.
And that app, so user-friendly, even I could figure it out.
Seriously, it opened up investing to so many people.
Especially younger people who might have been, intimidated by those old-school brokerage firms.
Exactly. But there's been some controversy around their payment for order flow model.
Right, where they get paid by market makers to route orders through them.
Yeah, some people say it's a conflict of interest.
Because it could mean investors aren't getting the best prices on their trades.
That's the argument. So Robinhood's got to figure out how to balance being accessible with being, transparent and playing by the rules.
It's a tough line to walk.
It is. They've got to prove they can be disruptive, but also stay within the lines.
As those lines keep moving, too. The financial world is always changing.
Totally. Okay, now for something completely different. Marathon Digital.
All right, what are they up to?
Bitcoin mining.
Seriously?
Yeah, they want to be one of the biggest players in North America.
Bitcoin's been getting a lot of heat for using so much energy, though.
True, but Marathon's doing something interesting.
What's that?
They're trying to use renewable energy sources.
Oh, smart. That makes sense.
It does, because if they want crypto to be viable in the long run.
It has to be sustainable.
Exactly. More and more investors care about that stuff.
They do. So Marathon's not just betting on the price of Bitcoin. They're betting on a greener future for the whole industry.
Totally. Okay, now let's switch gears again to SoFi.
SoFi. Haven't heard much about them lately.
They're trying to be like the ultimate one-stop shop for anything financial.
Like what?
Loans, investing, banking, everything.
Oh, wow. Ambitious.
Right. And get this, they just got a national bank charter.
Really? That's huge.
It is. It means they can offer way more services and really compete with the big banks.
Interesting. So they're going head-to-head with the established players.
They are, but they've been adding users like crazy.
That's a good sign.
It is. But the big question is, can they actually make money?
Yeah. User growth is great, but profits are what matter in the end.
For sure. It's a tough market, so we'll have to see how it plays out.
Definitely. All right, what's next?
Meta, or as we used to call them, Facebook.
Ah, yes, Meta. They're all about the metaverse now.
Right. This immersive virtual world that everyone's talking about.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Me too. It's like they're building a whole new reality.
It's wild. They're pouring money into VR headsets, like their Oculus ones.
And software too. Platforms for, interacting virtually and stuff.
So, instead of just scrolling through Facebook, we'll be hanging out in these virtual spaces.
Exactly. Think virtual concerts, virtual offices, even shopping for virtual clothes.
It's a huge departure from traditional social media.
It is. And it makes you wonder how we'll be living and working in the future.
It's a mind-blowing concept.
It is, but it's not all sunshine and roses.
What do you mean?
Well, there's some serious concerns about privacy.
That's a big one. With Meta, they've had their fair share of issues there.
Right. And then there's the cost of building this whole virtual world.
It's got to be astronomical.
It is. So it's a high-risk, high-reward situation.
For sure. The metaverse could be the next big thing, or it could be a flop.
Time will tell. Okay, now let's talk about a company that's a little more, well, steady. Microsoft.
Ah, the old reliable Microsoft.
Right. Windows, Office, they're like the backbone of the tech world.
But they're not just sitting still.
Definitely not. Their cloud computing platform, Azure, is doing really well.
Yeah, I've heard that's a big growth area for them.
It is. And then there's their proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard.
Wait, really? That's huge.
I know, right? We're talking about
Yeah.
Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, all those big franchises.
That would definitely shake things up in the gaming world.
It would, and it shows you that Microsoft's betting on a future where gaming is more interconnected.
Like playing the same game across different devices and platforms.
Exactly, and they're not just thinking about gaming, they're also looking at the metaverse.
Interesting. So they see potential there, too.
They do. They're thinking about things like collaborative workspaces in virtual reality.
Wow, Microsoft's always thinking ahead.
They are. Okay, so we've got tech giants making big moves, but let's not forget about Coinbase.
The crypto platform.
Yep, they've become the go-to place for people buying and selling crypto.
And not just everyday people, big institutions are getting involved, too.
It's true. So what's their secret?
Well, they've positioned themselves as this, trusted gateway to the crypto world.
That makes sense.
And what's interesting is that they're actually working with regulators.
Really?
Yeah, they're pushing for clear guidelines and rules for the whole industry.
That's smart because crypto is still kind of a wild west.
It is, and they know that for crypto to really take off, it needs to be more stable and trustworthy.
I agree. They're not just riding the wave. They're trying to build a solid foundation.
Exactly. And that's important with the market as volatile as crypto.
For sure. Okay, we've talked about a lot of companies today, but we can't wrap things up without mentioning Amazon.
The e-commerce giant.
The one and only?
Yeah,
But there's so much more than just an online store.
true. Their cloud computing service, AWS, is making them a ton of money,
It is, and they're constantly expanding into new areas.
like healthcare and grocery delivery.
Yeah, and don't forget about their streaming platform.
They're pumping out tons of original content.
They are. Amazon's a powerhouse, but they're not without their controversies.
What do you mean?
Well, there are all those antitrust issues.
Right, some people say they're too big and powerful.
Exactly. And then there are concerns about their labor practices.
Yeah, there have been some negative reports about how they treat their workers.
So it's not all perfect, even for a company as successful as Amazon.
It's a reminder that success doesn't mean you're above criticism.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from nostalgic game retailers to ambitious fintech startups.
And everything in between.
That's a lot to process.
It is, but that's what we're here for, to break it all down.
Exactly. So in the next part of our deep dive, we'll dig deeper into the strategies these companies are using.
Sounds good. I'm ready for more.
Me too. Let's take a quick break and then we'll jump back in.
So you know what's interesting to me?
What's that?
It's how many of these companies are having to, really adapt to this whole digital world.
Yeah, it's like everything's going digital.
And if you don't keep up,
You're toast.
pretty much.
Like GameStop.
Oh, yeah, they're a perfect example.
Textbook case of a company that's had to figure out how to do business online.
And that NFT marketplace thing they're doing?
It's a bold move,
It is, trying to get in on that whole digital collectibles craze.
but it's a crowded market.
It is.
Yeah.
They've got to offer something really special.
And that's the thing. They need to really use that brand recognition they have.
Oh, yeah. All those gamers who grew up going to their stores.
Exactly. Tap into that nostalgia.
Make it feel like, more than just another online marketplace.
Like they're bridging the gap between the physical and digital.
I like that, bridging the gap. That's good.
And speaking of digital disruption, what about Robinhood?
They were born in the digital age.
But they're facing their own hurdles.
Yeah, that payment for order flow model.
It's controversial.
It is, because on the one hand,
It lets them offer commission-free trading.
which is huge for a lot of people,
But then there's the question of
whether investors are getting the best prices.
and whether it's really transparent.
Right, are people really getting the full picture?
So Robinhood's got to address those concerns.
If they want to be seen as, a true innovator.
And a trustworthy company.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day,
People need to be able to trust them.
okay, let's switch gears again
Sure.
to Marathon Digital and their Bitcoin mining operation.
Oh, yeah. They're all in on crypto,
They are, but they're trying to do it sustainably.
which is smart
It is. They're using renewable energy.
because they know that the whole energy consumption thing is a big deal.
It is for investors and for the planet,
So it's a good long-term strategy
especially as more people care about where their money's going.
and how it's impacting the world.
All right, now let's talk SoFi.
They want to be everything financial, right?
Everything. They're like the Amazon of finance
Ambitious.
and that national bank charter they got.
That was a big win.
It was. It means they can offer so many more services.
And really compete with the big banks.
Head to head.
But can they really pull it off?
It's a tough market.
They're up against some heavy hitters.
They are, but they've been growing fast.
That's a good sign.
It is, but they need to prove they can make money.
And create a good experience for users.
Because that's what matters in the end.
For sure. Okay, now what about the metaverse?
Meta's all in.
But it's still so early.
It's hard to even grasp what it'll be like.
It's like they're building a new reality.
And they're spending a ton of money on it.
VR headsets, software, the whole 9 yards.
They're envisioning a future where we're constantly switching between the real world
And the virtual world.
like seamlessly
Interacting through avatars.
attending virtual events.
Working in virtual offices.
It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is, but there are definitely some concerns.
Oh yeah, like
It's a
privacy.
huge issue, especially with Meta's track record.
And then there's the whole question of like,
What are the rules in this new world?
who sets them? How do we enforce them?
It's uncharted territory.
Big time. So Meta has a lot to figure out.
They do, if they want the metaverse to be a success.
Okay, let's talk Microsoft.
Another company that's always adapting.
They've really transformed themselves.
From software to cloud computing to gaming.
And now they want to buy Activision Blizzard.
That's a power move.
It is. It shows how serious they are about gaming.
And have some of the biggest franchises in the world.
Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, it's huge,
It would shake up the whole industry.
for sure. And I think it shows that they're betting on a future where gaming is more,
Connected.
exactly, like playing the same game across all your devices.
And seamlessly switching between them.
Okay, now let's move on to Coinbase.
The crypto exchange.
They've become the go-to platform for so many people
It's interesting how they've positioned themselves.
as a kind of trusted guide to the crypto world,
Yeah, and they're working with regulators.
which is smart
Because it brings legitimacy to the whole industry.
and it helps build trust,
Which is crucial for crypto.
especially with all the volatility.
So Coinbase is playing the long game.
They're building for the future.
Okay, and last but not least,
Amazon.
Empire.
It's amazing how they keep growing.
AWS is a cash cow.
It is, and they're always expanding into new areas.
Healthcare, groceries, even space travel,
They're not afraid to try new things,
which is part of what's made them so successful.
but it's also brought them a lot of scrutiny.
Like those antitrust concerns.
Yeah, and the questions about how they treat their workers.
It's a reminder that even the most successful companies have their issues.
It's a balancing act, growing your business.
While being a responsible corporate citizen.
So we've covered a lot of ground, again, in this part,
Exploring the strategies these companies are using.
and the challenges they're facing. In the final part, we're going to take a step back.
And look at the bigger picture.
How are these companies shaping our world?
And what does it all mean for the future?
Stay tuned. So we've talked about these 8 companies and what they're doing.
But it's bigger than that, isn't it?
Way bigger.
It's like their innovations are actually shaping the world.
Changing how we do everything.
How we live, work, connect, it's all changing.
Like, think about the metaverse for a second.
Okay.
If Meta actually pulls this off,
It could be revolutionary.
it could change everything.
From how we interact with each other.
To how we learn, how we get healthcare, even,
Imagine going to the doctor virtually.
or taking a class in a virtual classroom.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. And it makes you think about, like,
What even is reality anymore?
right, like, where does the virtual world end and the real world begin
And what does it mean for our identities?
if we're all interacting through these avatars?
It's a whole philosophical rabbit hole.
Deep stuff.
And then you've got the whole rise of cryptocurrency.
Companies like Marathon Digital and Coinbase
They're challenging everything we thought we knew about money.
and finance.
It's like, what even is currency anymore?
Right. Is it Bitcoin? Is it something else?
It's exciting, but it's also a little scary.
Because it's so volatile.
And there are still a lot of regulatory hurdles.
So it's a wild ride.
For sure, but I think it's here to stay.
I think so too. And speaking of things that are here to stay,
What's that?
the ethical questions around all this technology.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
As AI gets more sophisticated,
And companies like Amazon and Microsoft collect all this data,
we have to think about privacy.
bias, misuse, all of it.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is, and it falls on all of us, not just the companies.
So what can we do?
Well, first of all, stay informed.
Educate yourself about the technology.
Learn how it works, what the implications are.
And be a critical thinker.
Don't just believe everything you read.
Ask questions. Challenge assumptions.
Get involved in the conversation.
Make your voice heard.
Support the companies and policies you believe in.
And never stop learning.
The world is changing so fast.
We have to keep up
And embrace the unknown.
because the future is full of possibilities.
Well said. It's been an incredible journey exploring all of this
From the metaverse to cryptocurrency,
and everything in between.
these 8 companies are just a small part of a much bigger story.
A story that's still being written.
And we all have a role to play in shaping it.
So let's be mindful of the choices we make.
And let's build a future that we can all be proud of.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.